A homeless girl gives water to a lost boy only to discover he's the son of a millionaire. Emma rolled over in her ragged sleeping bag beneath the L tracks, the rumble of trains echoing the chaos in her life. The sun had barely risen, yet the heat clawed at her skin. As a homeless girl in Chicago, she knew every sound and shadow of the streets. Each morning, she woke lacking comfort yet filled with resilience. She clutched a worn-out journal filled with dreams of a life that seemed far out of reach, her thoughts swirling with hope amidst despair. On that blistering summer afternoon, Emma set out on her usual quest for discarded cans to trade for a couple of dollars. Her stomach growled, but she pushed the hunger down. She had learned to survive through sheer determination. Suddenly, she spotted a boy wandering aimlessly, his eyes clouded with confusion. There was something different about him. His clothes screamed privilege and ill fit for these grimy streets. "Hey," she shouted, catching his attention as he paused. "You all right?" He looked at her, perplexed. I ran away," he stammered, his voice barely louder than the rushing trains above. The air felt heavy with the weight of his confession. Emma noticed his parched lips. Before thinking twice, she reached into her bag and pulled out a cold bottle of water. "Here, take this," she said, her voice softening. He blinked, stunned, before taking it. "Thanks," he murmured, the gratitude clear. As they sat together on the cracked pavement, sipping water and sharing snippets of their lives, an unexpected connection sparked between them. Emma spoke of her days spent navigating the unforgiving streets while Jake revealed the suffocating expectations of his affluent family. They laughed over shared stories of heartache, both from different worlds yet experiencing pain that felt oddly familiar. As they wandered the city's hidden gems, a park alive with laughter, a diner filled with warmth, they embraced each other's struggles. Emma felt a flicker of hope. Jake revealed dreams of exploration, free from the life mapped out for him. They found solace in those moments, proving that understanding crosses any divide. Their friendship flourished, but lingering insecurities lingered, rising like the summer heat. Then the illusion of freedom began to crack. Jake's family launched a frantic search, their wealth casting a dark shadow over their bond. Emma felt a sting of inadequacy. What if he went back? Would he choose her, or the life waiting at his doorstep? Tension escalated as they concocted a plan to escape together, believing they could outrun their circumstances. But the gravity of reality tugged at them. In a desperate moment, as Jake's parents finally caught up to him, he turned to Emma, his voice strong. "I can't go back," he shouted, forcing his parents to see her. She gasped, the weight of his declaration hitting her hard. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Emma's heart raced as she watched Jake confront his parents. Would their love conquer the societal barriers? As she stood under the shadows of the L tracks, she felt both fear and hope intertwining. The question hung in the air: could they forge a path through the chaos, or would their burgeoning friendship break under the pressure of expectation? In that moment, Emma realized their lives were at a crossroads, and destiny awaited its answer just a heartbeat away. The silence enveloped them, thick and heavy like the humidity that clung to the city. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she registered the shock on Jake's parents' faces. Disbelief mixed with anger in their expressions, making the air crackle with tension. Jake stood defiant, his body tense but his gaze unwavering. "Mom, Dad, I'm not going back with you," he declared, and for a moment, Emma thought she might burst from the intensity of the moment. She could almost taste the freedom he craved, and it filled her with so much hope yet so much fear too. "What do you think you're doing?" His father shot back, voice low but fierce. "This isn't a game. You can't just run off from us like this." Jake's mother extended a perfectly manicured hand, fraught with tension. Jake, please, just come home. We love you. You're not thinking straight. Emma's heart ached at the desperation in her voice. But what was love to them? Did they truly understand their son's heart? She fought to pay attention as confusion washed over her. Suddenly, the crack of reality hit her anew. Jake took a step closer to his parents, every inch of him trembling with a mixture of anger and pain. You mean love as long as I fit into your plans? I'm tired of living up to your expectations. I can't breathe. The weight of his words crashed into Emma. She'd known that feeling all too well, the suffocating grip of a life shaped by others. But she had nowhere to run, the streets were her prison. And then came the culmination of their feelings. You don't understand who I am, Jake continued, his voice rising. I'm not your perfect son. I want to be free. He turned towards Emma, a desperate plea in his eyes. Emma, I need you. Hearing her name broke something inside her, it was a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Jake, she breathed, her heart racing. Could he really mean that? Suddenly, the sharp sound of a cell phone rang out, puncturing the tension like a knife. Jake's parents glanced at each other, panic flickering in their eyes. They were clearly overwhelmed, but not enough to fully let go of him. Who else knows you're here? His mother asked, voice shaking. We need to get you out of this mess, now. Emma shuffled slightly, feeling their gazes pierce through her. She wanted to melt away into the shadows, to not be a part of this confrontation. But how could she? I want to go back with you, Jake insisted, unwavering. And I'm not abandoning Emma. She's my friend. You don't get to decide who is in my life. Is this really worth it? His father's tone shifted, softer but edged with confusion. You're throwing away everything we've built for you. Emma swallowed hard. The truth was they could build towers of wealth, but without love and understanding, they were empty. She stepped forward, breaking the silence that hung between them. Jake, you don't have to make this choice alone, she said, her voice trembling. We can find a way together. But in that moment of connection, she felt her reality clash against Jake's. Would they really run away together? Could a plan forged from pain and desperation become a path to liberation? The fear tightened within her as Jake looked her way, determination flooding his features. Then let us figure it out, he whispered, a fire lighting in his eyes. She hoped it was enough, but deep down, doubt clawed at her chest. Jake's parents started to shift, their expressions morphing into a mix of frustration and disbelief. Emma watched as they slowly processed the idea of losing him. Could they ever understand how vital this fight was for Jake and her? Let us go, Jake spoke almost commandingly to them, insisting on this moment of choice. It wasn't just freedom he demanded but the right to choose his own life. As the reality weaved around them, Emma held on to the hope that together, they could redefine their destinies. But fear crept in, too. What would happen if they failed? The stakes grew higher. Jake's father, regaining his composure, stepped forward. We're not leaving without you, he said, a new urgency in his voice. We'll fight for you, Jake, you can't shut us out. Emma's heart raced. The battle lines were drawn, and a new chapter began to unfold before her. Would the choices they made now pave the way for a future they could reclaim, or would it fracture them forever? As the moment hung delicately in the air, tension thick as smoke, Emma knew the real fight was still ahead. Would they seize it together or would the world pull them apart? And just as the question settled in her mind, a loud siren echoed in the distance, snapping them back into the painful reality of their choices. Would they be strong enough to withstand what was coming next? Emma's heart hammered in her chest as the siren wailed, drawing closer. It was as if the world around them was shaking, the air vibrating with uncertainty. Jake's determined expression faltered for a moment, his eyes darting toward the street, where flashing lights illuminated the heavy, gathering clouds of tension. What do we do? He asked, his voice suddenly small, the bravado slipping away like sand through fingers. In that moment, everything felt surreal. Jake's parents looked at each other with panic etched in their features, the reality of their son's refusal settling in like fog. Emma stepped closer to Jake, anchoring him with her presence. They were in this together, and she wouldn't let him bear the weight alone. "We need to move," she urged, her voice low but firm. "If they come here, it'll get messy. You can't go back with them." Jake's mom looked pleadingly at her son, desperation lining her every word. "Jake, please. Let us talk about this. If you really want to go, we can figure it out, just don't do anything rash." But Jake shook his head, the fire in him reigniting. "You don't understand. This isn't just about going home. It's about my life. I want to choose my own path." Emma caught a glimpse of the pain in his eyes, pain that echoed deep in her own heart. They both knew what it was like to be lost, to feel suffocated by the lives others wanted them to lead. "Let us go," she whispered, gripping his hand tightly. He nodded, determination flooding back into his features. As they turned, Jake's father stepped in front of them, blocking the exit. "You can't just run away. You're making a terrible mistake," he said, his voice strained but authoritative. For a brief moment, everything stopped. Emma looked between them, the tension so thick she could almost reach out and touch it. "You're not listening to him. This isn't about you anymore. It's about what Jake needs," she challenged. The siren wailed louder now, a relentless reminder that time was slipping. Jake's gaze flickered to his parents, torn but resolute. Would he choose their comfort or the uncertain promise of freedom? "Why don't you see? I've been drowning in your expectations for too long. Emma knows what it's like to be trapped, to feel invisible, even when everyone's looking," Jake said, his voice breaking. The sincerity in his words struck Emma, resonating with something deep inside. It was brutal, but true. Their lives didn't have to be cages. Suddenly, Jake's mother's voice broke through the haze. "What if we help you find your path? We've worked so hard, you don't have to disregard us completely. We can still be your family." Emma locked eyes with Jake. A flicker of uncertainty flashed across his expression. Was this another ploy to pull him back into their world, to convince him that family would always come first? "No," Jake said, the fire in him surging like a tide. "Not like this. I can't go back to a life that suffocates me." The world outside seemed to echo Jake's rejection as the distant siren blared again, now almost upon them. The life they had known was crashing down in chaos, and all of them stood on the brink of an unknown future. As emotions twisted in the air, it became clear, they were at a crossroads. Would they fight for their freedoms or find themselves lost in the shadows of others' choices? With one last pleading look, Jake's parents softened, their frustration replaced with a mix of anguish and acceptance. "Jake," his father began again, less sure this time. Only then did Emma sense a shift, a faint glimmer of hope. They were waiting. Waiting for Jake to make a choice. As tension simmered, the harsh light of reality loomed larger. They needed to act, but the fear gripping them all was palpable. Would they take that step into the unknown together, or would they be pulled back by the tides of expectation? Just then, the sirens stopped outside, and Emma's breath caught. The moment of truth was upon them. Would they face it hand in hand, or would the world tear them apart? Jake's heart raced as the silence filled the room, amplified by the fading siren's cry outside. The moment stretched on, each breath feeling heavier than the last. Emma squeezed his hand tighter, grounding him. He had just spoken his truth, spilling out all the emotions that had been bottled up for far too long. But now, faced with the reality of his choice, a whirlwind of doubt threatened to flood his resolve. Jake, his father's voice felt fragile, almost breaking. "You're not thinking clearly. You don't know what it's like out there." Jake's chest tightened. "And you don't know what it's like to feel trapped. I don't want to be like you, caring more about appearances than happiness." "His happiness matters too," Emma interjected, her voice unwavering. The determination in her stance emboldened Jake. Mrs. Thompson took a tentative step back, her tears reflecting their shared fears. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, the door burst open behind them, shattering the fragile intimacy of the moment. "Police!" A voice boomed, followed by the heavy steps of approaching officers. Jake and Emma's head snapped toward the entrance, the sight of the uniformed officers sending a chill down their spines. The world around them was spiraling, shifting from a deeply personal battle into something far more aggressive. "This is it," Jake breathed, adrenaline surging through him. "We can't stay here. Get outside. Now." An officer shouted, directing everyone towards the exit. Chaos erupted as Jake and Emma pushed past, heartbeats synchronized, a resolute determination guiding them. They fled the house, the air dense with the scent of rain and the palpable buzz of electricity. Once outside, they were met with the flashing lights gleaming against the gray sky. A few neighbors had emerged, their expressions a blend of curiosity and concern. But as Jake scanned the crowd, one face stood out, his childhood friend, Kira. "Kira!" he shouted, spotting her just beyond the police barricade. She looked shocked, as if she couldn't believe he was there. "Jake! What happened?" she asked, her voice barely making it through the noise. "Can you help us?" Emma cut in, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. "We need to get away from here." Kira hesitated, glancing nervously at the officers. She nodded slowly and beckoned them to follow. "Come with me." As they ducked into an alley, the world outside faded, muffled but still alive with urgency. Jake turned to Emma, her face marked with concern. "What if they find us? What if they pull us back?" Emma's eyes sparkled with fierce determination. "We don't let them. We decide our story." Together, they rushed through the alley, squeezing past dumpster bins and trellises tangled with wild vines. Each footfall echoed the beat of their hearts, quickening with every stray noise, a car engine, raised voices, the distant sound of sirens. But this was different. They weren't just running from something, they were running towards the freedom they craved. Emerging onto a quieter street, Kira stopped, breathing heavily. "I heard what you said to your parents. That was brave." Jake felt a swell of warmth at her words, even as fear coiled in his stomach. "I just couldn't go back. Not now." "But you're leaving everything behind," Kira said, concern etching her brow. "I'm leaving a cage," Jake corrected, tears of frustration pricking at the corners of his eyes. "I need to find out who I am without them." As they stood there, the weight of his decision pressed heavily upon him. Could he really face a world that demanded conformity when his soul craved authenticity? Emma looked at him again, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Just know that no matter what happens, we're in this together." Before Jake could respond, a blaring horn cut through the air, sending a jolt of panic through him. Had they been found? He turned to see a black SUV pulling to a stop nearby, the engine still rumbling. The door swung open, revealing a figure Jake hadn't expected to see. His heart dropped. It was his father, and behind him, a familiar face emerged. "Jake. We need to talk." The moment teetered on a knife's edge. Would Jake choose to step into the waiting arms of expectation or stand firm, ready to break free? The storm of emotions swirled as he faced the reality of his choices. It was time to confront everything he had been running from. Would he have the courage to reclaim his life, or would he let the shadows of his past pull him back? Jake stood frozen, his father's demand echoing in his ears, a reminder of everything he wished to escape. The tension between them felt electric, charged with years of unspoken words and unmet expectations. He wanted to scream, to run, to push through the concerns and fears that had held him back for so long. But here was his father right in front of him, wearing that familiar expression of confusion and concern that had haunted many of their past conversations. "Dad, no," he replied, his voice steady despite the rippling anxiety coursing through him. Emma's hand gripped his tighter, a silent reminder of his purpose. "Jake, please. Let us just talk, just let us get in the car." His father leaned towards him, desperation in his tone. Kira's eyes widened as she watched the standoff, her earlier excitement now replaced by a deep-rooted worry. "Don't do it, Jake," she urged quietly, glancing at Emma, who nodded in agreement. "You're better than this." Jake's chest tightened as he looked between Emma and Kira before glaring at his father. "You don't get to decide my life anymore." The world around them faded into a blaring silence, each heartbeat marking time. He could feel the weight of his past clinging to him like a shroud, threatening to pull him back into a life defined by his father's rules. "Go ahead, run. But don't come crying to me when you realize you'll have nothing." His father's voice dripped with frustration and disappointment, sending a shockwave of doubt through Jake's mind, but Jake wasn't just running aimlessly. He was running towards something, a chance at freedom, at clarity. He could feel Emma's unwavering faith propelling him forward, an anchor refusing to let him drift away. Taking a step closer to the SUV, Jake's throat tightened, and he spoke clearly, each word heavy with intention. "I'd rather have nothing than live a lie." Tension crackled in the air as he turned his back on his father, the decision to forge his own path solidifying in his mind. "Let us go," he said to Emma and Kira, determined. Their movements were swift, adrenaline fueling their flight down the street. The sound of their footsteps pounded in unison, a stark contrast to Jake's turmoil inside. What if this was a mistake? What if he lost everything he had ever known? As they rounded a corner, Jake spotted a small park ahead, its solitude a beacon promising a moment of respite. They ducked inside, the sounds of the world fading for a moment, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. Kira leaned against a tree, gasping for air. "What just happened back there?" "Your dad, he'll never understand," Jake interrupted, pacing the small clearing, fueled by confusion and anger. "I can't let him dictate how I live my life. I can't go back." Emma stepped closer, placing her hand on his arm. "Jake, this is a huge leap. But it's okay to feel scared. Just know, you don't have to face this alone." A flicker of doubt crossed his mind, but he nodded. "I know. I just wish it could be different." A sudden rustling from the nearby bushes interrupted their breathless moment. They turned, eyes wide, and watched as a small figure stepped out, an unexpected sight, a young girl, her eyes bright, holding a bottle of water. "Hey, do you need this?" she asked, her voice sweet and sincere. Jake glanced around, dumbfounded. "Why do you have that?" "I saw you guys run," she said, her gaze darting between them. "You looked thirsty." In that moment, a wave of warmth washed over him. Sometimes, even in chaos, a little kindness could take the edge off the uncertainty. "Thanks," he murmured, accepting the bottle she offered. It felt like a small act, but to Jake, it was a reminder of hope in a confusing world. As he took a sip, he realized that diving into the unknown might lead to unexpected allies. But would that be enough to pull him through the storm building on the horizon? Before Jake could voice his gratitude, a distant shout echoed towards them from the park's entrance, pulling at his heartstrings again. Would they be fast enough to outrun their past, or would the chains of expectation catch up with him and drag him back? The shout grew louder as footsteps approached, heavy and fast. Jake felt a chill creep up his spine. Panic set in, twisting his insides. Who was coming? Was it his father, already seeking to reclaim him? Or someone else entirely, another threat to their newfound freedom? "Let us get out of here," Kira urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake nodded, his instinct kicking in. He turned back to the girl, who was still standing there, an innocent look of concern etched across her face. "You should probably go. It's not safe here," he said urgently. But instead of retreating, the girl stepped forward, defiantly clutching the empty water bottle. "I can help. Just tell me what to do." Emma shook her head, glancing at Jake. "We can't drag her into this. It's too dangerous." Jake hesitated. Part of him wanted to take her hand, to let her join their fight. But the weight of his situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. This isn't a game. You don't know what you're getting into, he said, his voice low but firm. Before the girl could respond, the shouting intensified. Jake! Kiera! Where are you? His heart raced. His father's voice cut through the air like a knife. He locked eyes with Emma, who looked just as terrified. We need to find a way out now. They turned and sprinted deeper into the park, suddenly feeling like the prey in a dangerous game. Branches scratched at Jake's arms as they rushed past trees, their breath quickening with each frantic step. Kiera glanced back, her features tight with fear. What if he finds us? He won T, Jake shouted back, though uncertainty lurked in the corners of his mind. They had to keep moving. They darted out of the park and into a narrow alleyway. The world around them felt suffocating, the walls closing in. Jake looked around for a place to hide, but the alley just seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with shadows ready to swallow them whole. The shouting continued. I swear, if I find you, you'll regret running. Jake's gut twisted. He turned to Emma and Kiera, desperation flooding his voice. What if we can't escape? What if this goes too far? Emma met his gaze, her eyes firm, unwavering. You've already made it this far, Jake. You were brave enough to stand up to him. That counts for something. You can't give up now. We won't let you. But what if she was wrong? The thought echoed in his mind like a relentless drumbeat. In the depths of his fear, he felt for the young girl who had offered him water, a symbol of hope in a storm. A flicker of movement caught his eye at the alley's entrance, a figure stumbling into view. It was his father, furious and desperate, clearly having caught up to them. Jake leaned against the rough brick wall, dread pooling in his stomach. There was no denying it now, he couldn't hide. They needed a plan and fast, but the pounding of his heart nearly drowned out reason. Jake! His father called out, nearing the alley, the sound of his footsteps like thunder clapping, echoing in the oppressive silence. With no more time to think, Jake glanced at Emma and Kiera, resolve hardening inside him. They couldn't be cornered now. He turned back to the young girl, urgency lacing his words. If you can help us, now's the time. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about all of us. As he spoke, a flicker of understanding crossed her face. Just then, the alley darkened even more. I see you. His father's voice boomed again. You can't hide. Jake had one moment to act, one moment to decide how far he was willing to go to break free. Would he stand his ground, or would he take the ultimate leap of faith into the unknown? The young girl's gaze locked onto his, the weight of that moment heavy, a spark of hope amidst the chaos, and that spark might just change everything. Jake felt an urgency ripple through him. The alley closed in, dark and claustrophobic, while his father's voice boomed like a warning siren. Sweat dripped down his back as he weighed the possibilities. He needed a plan, something fast. We have to move, he said, scanning the dimly lit space. He could hear his father's footsteps approaching, almost echoing off the brick walls like a heartbeat counting down toward disaster. The girl stepped closer, her determination unwavering. I know this place. I can help you hide. Are you sure? Kiera interjected, fear flickering in her eyes. It's too dangerous. Trust me, the girl insisted. I want to let him find you. I promise. Jake exchanged glances with Emma and Kiera. Could they trust her? She looked so young and scared, yet there was an unexpected courage in her stance, a fire that seemed to push back against the darkness surrounding them. Okay, he said, taking a breath. Lead the way. The girl nodded, her expression serious but determined. She turned and sprinted deeper into the alley, the others trailing behind her, their feet slapping against the damp pavement. Jake had a pounding sensation in his chest, fueled partly by adrenaline and partly by fear. Over there. The girl said, pointing to a small opening between two dumpsters. It was filthy and narrow, but it might just shield them from his father's wrath. They squeezed in, shoulder to shoulder, a huddled cluster of anxiety. The smell of decay and garbage enveloped them, but they didn't care. It was a brief refuge from the fury outside. Jake felt a flicker of hope as he pressed his back against the cool metal of the dumpster, but that flicker was quickly swallowed by the weight of their reality. "Jake!" Kira whispered, clutching his arm. He could hear her breath quickening, feel her tension radiating along his skin. Emma's fingers brushed his, and he turned to see her squeeze his hand reassuringly. "We've got this." "Just hang on." Suddenly, footsteps halted right outside the entrance. Jake's heart raced as he imagined his father straining to catch a glimpse, anger radiating through the cracks of his irritation. "I know you're in here." His father's voice boomed, gravelly and tainted with frustration. "You can't hide forever." Jake held his breath, ready to bolt at the slightest sound. It felt like time itself had ceased as they waited, all of them hungry for silence, praying it would shield them. "What if he does find us?" The girl's voice quivered. "What then?" "We fight," Jake said, delivering the words with a confidence he didn't quite feel. "Whatever it takes." Seconds stretched into minutes as they remained motionless, the alley filled only with the raspy breaths and their silent fears. Each second made them more vulnerable, amplified the dread of being discovered. Just when it seemed the moment would break, the footsteps retreated down the alley. His father, frustrated and pacing. Jake could almost hear the scowl twisting his facial features as he moved away. The momentary relief brought a wave of dizzying emotion, but then, his father's shouting returned, angrier than before. "You think you can escape me? This isn't over." The girl looked at Jake with wide eyes. "We must move, now." She jumped up, pulling them along as she navigated through the narrow space until they stumbled out onto the street that felt bright and open yet filled with uncertain dangers at every turn. "What's your name?" Jake asked, surprised at how much he needed to know her now, to feel a sense of connection in turmoil. "Lynn," she replied, throwing a glance over her shoulder as they pressed on, urgency bubbling in her voice. "Just keep running." Suddenly, Jake realized it was more than just escape they sought. They were fighting for their lives and reclaiming their futures together. The chase turned into a reckless race through the city, and as they turned the corner, the weight of possibility hung in the air. "What now?" Kira panted beside him, glancing at the girl for direction. They all had faith in Lynn, but the twist of fate felt like a movie script that could either bring them hope or hammer despair. "Don't stop," Lynn urged, darting down another street. "I know a safe place." Jake's feet moved, but doubt clung to him like shadows. Was safety truly a possibility? Or were they only running deeper into a trap? As they dashed into the unknown, Jake felt the spines of fear flicker under his skin. Perhaps Lynn was their only chance, but this path brimming with uncertainty might lead to something even greater than escape. What he didn't understand yet was that trust would take them somewhere unimaginable. Would he summon the courage to find out? The streets felt alive, vibrant with the chaos of the city, yet all Jake could see was the blur of Lynn's determined face leading them forward. Each step echoed the racing pulse in his chest. They turned another corner, the ground wet from a recent rain, splashing against their shoes as they ran. It was a trivial annoyance, but right now, annoyance was far from their biggest concern. "Over there." Lynn pointed to a dilapidated building, its facade crumbling yet somehow inviting. "We can hide in there. Quick." Jake sprinted toward it, dragging Kira and Emma along with him. The door creaked as they pushed through, the dim light flooding in from the cracked windows. They stepped inside, panting heavily, glancing at one another as if trying to draw strength from shared breaths. "Is this really safe?" Kira asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "It's better than outside," Lynn insisted, scanning the room. "Just take a second, catch your breath." Jake leaned against the wall, trying to calm the whirlwind inside him. He was grateful for the moment but couldn't shake the sensation that danger loomed just outside. He felt Emma's hand brush against his, its warmth grounding him. "What do we do now?" he whispered, not ready to voice the fears gnawing at him. Lynn straightened, brushing her tangled hair from her face. "We wait. If he's out there searching, we can't just run blindly." She looked down, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "But we can't stay here long." Jake nodded, understanding the weight of her suggestion. He could almost hear his father's voice in the back of his mind, that gravelly, almost mocking tone. "You think you can escape me?" The anger felt like hot embers, pushing against Jake's sanity. "Lynn, why are you helping us?" he asked, the question bursting forth before he could stop it. "What's in it for you?" Lynn hesitated. I've been in situations like this before. I know what it's like to run. You just need to trust me." Her determination flickered again, an ember refusing to die in the face of doubt. "You weren't running from that," Kira snapped, uncharacteristically harsh. "You just don't understand what we're up against." Emma shot Kira a confused look. "Now's not the time." "No," Lynn interrupted, her voice steady. "She's right. But I'm here to help, and I promise I won't fail you." Jake could feel the tension coil around them like barbed wire. What if Lynn turned out to be wrong? What if they were making a mistake trusting a stranger? But deep down, he felt it, that flicker in the dark, the same fire he recognized in Lynn's eyes. They were connected by desperation and hope. He couldn't forget that. Suddenly, they heard the distant sound of footsteps, rapidly approaching, interrupting the fragile silence. Jake's heart raced, instincts screaming at him to run again. "He's coming back. Hide!" Lynn urged, scrambling behind a decrepit couch, gesturing for the others to follow. Jake squeezed in next to her, the musty fabric scratching against his skin. Kira and Emma pressed against the opposite wall, their breaths shallow and quick. He could barely see Lynn's face, but he could sense her focus, her determination flooding the small space. The footsteps grew louder, pounding harshly against the ground, accompanied by angry shouts. "You have nowhere to go." It was his father's voice, low and venomous, echoing through the empty building. Jake's pulse quickened. They were trapped. Would they be caught? As he glanced at Kira and Emma, he wondered if they were taking their last breaths of freedom. "Stay quiet," Lynn whispered, a calming authority in her tone. Jake clenched his fists, feelings of desperation swirling inside him. He could almost feel the weight of impossibility pressing down. What if trust could lead them to salvation? Or was it a mirage, something to clutch at before falling into darkness? The footsteps stopped just outside the cracked door. Jake tried to steady his breath, fighting against the urge to bolt. But then the shout came again, this time laced with mockery. "You think hiding there will help? You're just prolonging the inevitable." The air was thick with dread. In that instant, Jake realized the truth: hope could be dangerous, as would be the price of failure. But would they dare challenge it? And as he braced himself for what lay ahead, he realized something. This journey was only just beginning, and the twist of fate waiting outside the building could change everything. What awaited them on the other side of that door? Would they capture or expose their fears in one breath? The silence in the room felt smothering, each breath echoing like thunder against the walls. Jake could feel the heat rising, his heart thundering against his chest as the footsteps stopped just outside. He could almost hear the rough creak of his father's boots, the sound that haunted every corner of his mind. It was deafening. Lynn urged again, her grip tightening on Jake's arm. He glanced at her, trying to regain some composure in her determined gaze. But seeing the anxiety flicker beneath the surface made his own fears flare even higher. They had to get out. They had to move. Kira shifted beside him and let out a small breath, her wide eyes betraying her turmoil. Emma's face was pale, her usual spark dimmed by the ominous uncertainty. Each of them was a thread, woven tightly together in this tapestry of dread that felt ready to unravel. Why is he doing this? Kira suddenly whispered, directed more towards the floor than anyone. What does he want? Jake wanted to scream. He wanted to say it was about control, that his father thrived on the thrill of intimidation. Instead, he just clenched his jaw, fighting to keep his emotions from spilling over. Survival, he muttered. He wants control. But Lin, ever the fighter, had other ideas. He won't find you. He'll give up. If we stay silent he might not even know we're here, she said, her confidence invigorating. What if he does? Emma interjected, her voice barely a whisper through the tension. What if he decides to check the before she could finish? The sound of the door rattling against its frame made them all jump. A low, taunting laugh seeped through the cracks. I can feel you, Jake, I can smell your fear. You're not as clever as you think. Each word sliced through Jake, fracturing the fragile sense of safety they tried to build in that moment. The taunts weren't just hollow threats, they were designed to pierce through defenses, to expose every crack in his resolve. With newfound resolve, Jake glanced around the dim room, searching for any means of escape. A grimy window creaked open above them, the aging wood protesting against the movement. It was a slim chance, an uncertain gamble, but every second counted. There. He mouthed to Lin and the others, jerking his chin toward the window as he shifted away from the couch. We didn't come this far just to give up now, Lin whispered fiercely, rising once more. We'll climb out, but we have to be quick. 3 of us can't fit through that. Kira said, panic rising in her voice. We have to try, Jake replied. He felt a sudden flash of clarity. For the first time, he thought about who he was, who they all were, not just victims but those who had fought against the strangling grasp of fear. He pushed against the wall, forcing himself forward. I want to let him take us down, not without a fight. The door rattled again, louder this time. It felt like an earthquake trembling through his bones, as if his father were demanding their surrender. We need to go. Lin insisted, urgency swirling in her tone. In a flurry of movement, Lin helped Jake up first, guiding him toward the window. He turned back, adrenaline pushing against fear, their eyes locked. Emma was next, followed swiftly by Kira. But as Jake launched himself through the window, an ominous shadow fell behind them, and the last thing he heard was a voice echoing through the building. Run all you want, you're still mine. With that, the air rushed past him, filled with uncertainty and the grip of the unknown just outside. They tumbled out, hitting the damp ground with a thud. Jake quickly scrambled to his feet and turned to check on the others. The fear in their eyes mirrored his own, but there was something else, a flicker of defiance. They weren't done. They had a chance, however small. But as he looked back toward the building, a chilling thought struck him. What if he knows our next move? What if we're leading him straight to us? With their breaths still shaky, they melded back into the chaos of the streets, but the past lurked behind them, ever looming. They may have escaped the building, but the shadows of their fears still hunted them. Jake felt the weight of each moment shifting, and as they dashed away from the old building, one question burned fiercely in his mind: what awaited them in the city beyond? Would they find safety, or would their pursuers close in on them, threatening to unravel everything they had just fought for? As they sprinted into the web of the city, the bustling streets collapsed around them, the chaos reminiscent of a wild storm. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, pounding out a rhythm of fear and determination. He could feel the weight of the world pressing closer, but there was something new. The thrill of freedom surged through him. Lin led with confidence, weaving through throngs of people while Jake, Kira, and Emma fell into step behind her, adrenaline surging in their veins. Each stride carried both panic and possibility, an echo of dreams yet untouched. Where are we going? Kira panted, glancing over her shoulder, eyes wide as shadows seemed to dance at their heels. To a safe house, Lin replied matter-of-factly, though uncertainty lingered in the corners of her voice. My uncle owns a place on the edge of the city. He'll help us. Why would he? Emma interjected, skepticism seeping into her tone. You barely know us. Lynn shot her an exasperated look. Because he knows what it's like to be running. Just trust me. Jake welcomed the fire inside Lynn's eyes. Trust was a thin thread, but right now, it was all they had. He turned his gaze forward, letting hope lift him as they barreled through the city's heartbeat, past storefronts that blurred into a rushing whirl. Minutes felt like hours, and just as their breath began to steady, the collection of memories flooded back, the harshness of Jake's father's control, the suffocating shadows of expectation. The thought kept spurring him on, like a flame igniting within him. He would create his own path, no matter the cost. Up ahead. Lynn called, pointing to a small alley lined with ivy-covered walls. A sense of urgency quickened their pace. They ducked in, the world outside melting away until the noise of the city turned into distant murmurs. Once they reached the end of the alley, a weathered door sat quietly. Lynn pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with mismatched furniture, faded posters of racing cars, and the scent of something warm simmering in the distance. "Welcome to my uncle's safe house," she whispered, relief washing over her features. "We can rest here." As they stepped inside, a wave of exhaustion hit them, but it was intermingled with a sense of reality settling in, a realization of how far they had come and what they had escaped. Jake took a deep breath, letting the calmness of the space wash over him with bittersweet relief. "Who are you kids?" A gruff voice startled them, coming from behind an old couch. An older man with kind eyes, silver hair peppered with gray, watched them with curious intensity. "We're friends of Lynn," Jake spoke up, desperation touching his voice. "We need help. They're looking for us." Lynn nodded eagerly, stepping forward. "Uncle Mike, please. We can't go back. Not ever again." Mike scanned their faces, seeing a mixture of fear and resolve. Then he sighed, the weight of their vulnerability resonating in the air. "All right. You can stay as long as you need, but you'll have to help around here. It's not charity." Jake felt a heavy stone of hope settle in his chest. It wasn't just a sanctuary from the storm, it was a chance to rewrite their stories. The room began to fill with chatter as they briefed Mike on the events of the day. Laughter punctuated their tales, breaking the tension, and for the first time in a long while, Jake felt a warmth spreading through him despite the chaos outside. After dinner, as the sun began to dip beneath the horizon, casting a golden light through the dusty windows, Lynn turned to Jake. "What's next? Are we really going to just run forever?" Jake paused, the question hitting harder than he expected. Did he want to be a permanent fugitive? He shifted, feeling Emma's supportive gaze. "No. We're not running, we're building." That realization sprouted something within him, a commitment to create a life built on choice rather than flight. "I want to start over. We can find jobs, attend school. I want to be something different." Kira nodded, her eyes sparkling in the glow of the fading daylight. "And I'll be with you. We'll face this together." Lynn smiled, determination glimmering once again in her eyes. "Whatever it takes." As Jake looked at them, he felt the warmth of community enveloping him, transforming his fear into something tangible, a longing for a future marked by their own choices, not by shadows. For the first time in a long time, he didn't just see a world of uncertainties, he saw light, hope shimmering on the horizon, just waiting for them to reach it. Under the quiet whispers of night, they gathered, hearts beating anew with purpose. "Together," Jake whispered, his voice laced with promise. "We've got this." And as they prepared to map their new reality, one thing became clear: they were no longer shackled by their pasts. They were the architects of their destiny, unstoppable in their journey to build a brighter future. This was their moment to thrive. Now, you need to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below with all your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And the most important, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand how crucial these actions are.